The fool stands at the edge of a cliff, one foot suspended over the abyss, eyes turned toward the sky. He carries nothing but a small bundle, the past discarded, the future not yet formed. In his innocence, he is about to step into empty air. And in 1954, in a lecture hall in Los Angeles, Neville Goddard said this: "You must be willing to give up what you are for what you want to become. You must dare to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled before a single fact confirms it. You must live from the end as though it is, when reason and the senses scream it is not." The fool's leap and Neville's assumption, are they not the same act? The willing suspension of what is in service of what is desired. The tarot calls it the journey from zero to completion. Neville called it the law. But both begin in the same place, with consciousness before it has chosen a state. What if the entire major arcana, from fool to world, is nothing less than a map of Neville's complete method, laid out centuries before he spoke it? What if living in the end is not a metaphor, but the precise gesture the fool makes when he steps off the cliff, trusting the ground will meet him only after he is moved? Tonight, we walk the path, from card to card, from state to state, from assumption to fulfillment. And by the end, you will know how to use the fool's journey, not as fortune-telling, not as symbol, but as Neville's daily practice, alive in your hands. Welcome to Neville Goddard Universe. My name is here to guide you through a teaching that refuses to stay in one tradition, one era, or one language, because truth, when it is true, echoes. And the echo you hear in Neville Goddard's voice has been sounding through mystical systems for millennia. Tonight, we are bringing together two languages that have rarely been placed side by side with this kind of rigor: Neville's doctrine of assumption and the fool's journey through the major arcana of the tarot. Not as novelty, not as syncretism for its own sake, but because the structure is there, undeniable, precise, and practical. Neville gave us the complete method. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, persist in that assumption, and the outer world will conform. He told us consciousness is the only reality, that imagining creates reality, that we must live from the end. But he did not always give us a map of the inner stages we pass through as we move from assumption to manifestation. The tarot does, and it does so with a psychological precision that is startling once you see it through Neville's eyes. By the end of this episode, you will understand how the Fool, card 0, pure potentiality, is Neville's bare self before it assumes a state. You will see how each of the 22 cards of the major arcana corresponds to a stage in the unfolding of assumption, from the leap of faith to the embodied fulfillment of the world card. And you will walk away with a step-by-step technique drawn directly from Neville's core lectures, a technique that uses the fool's journey as a template for living in the end, daily, consciously, completely. If this kind of exploration speaks to you, if you have felt that these systems must be saying the same thing beneath the surface, then I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this work reach others who are ready to see these connections, and I am grateful for every mind that joins us on this path. Now, let us begin where all journeys begin, with the one who does not yet know where he is going. Neville said this repeatedly, in lecture after lecture. Consciousness is the only reality, not matter, not circumstance, not the so-called facts of your life. Consciousness. And consciousness, he taught, is not passive, it is active, it is always assuming. You are never not in a state. The question is only, which state are you occupying? He called it assumption. You assume you are wealthy, and you become wealthy. You assume you are loved, and you are loved. You assume you are healed, and you are healed. The assumption, held as true, hardens into fact. This is not wishful thinking. This is law. Neville said, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. But here is where most students stumble. They try to assume from their current state. They try to feel wealthy while still identifying as poor. They try to imagine love while rooted in loneliness. And it does not work, not because the law failed, but because they never left the old state. They brought the old self with them into the new assumption. And the old self cannot assume the new state, it can only mimic it. Neville knew this. And so he taught something radical. You must become bare. You must strip away the accumulated identity, the name, the history, the story you tell about who you are and what has happened to you. You must return to what he sometimes called the unconditioned consciousness, the self before it took on any shape, the pure I am before you add anything to it. In his 1951 lecture, The Pruning Shears of Revision, Neville says, "You are what you are by virtue of the state of consciousness from which you view the world. Change the state, and you change the perception. Change the perception, and the world changes. But to change the state, you must first be willing to release the current one. You must stand for a moment in no state at all, naked, undefined, open. This is not comfortable. The ego hates it. The ego is nothing but accumulated states, after all, layers of identity built up over years, hardened into a sense of me. To release that, even temporarily, feels like death. And in a sense, it is. Neville said, you must be willing to die to what you are in order to become what you desire to be. Let me give you a concrete example. A woman wrote to Neville in the early 1950s. She had been trying to manifest a specific job, something she wanted desperately. She had visualized it. She had affirmed it. She had done everything she thought she was supposed to do, and nothing happened. Weeks passed, months. The job went to someone else. She wrote to Neville in frustration. Why isn't this working? Neville wrote back with a single question. Are you assuming the state of having the job, or are you assuming the state of wanting the job? She realized immediately she had been performing the techniques from the state of lack. Every visualization was colored by the feeling of, I don't have this yet. Every affirmation was tinged with doubt. She was trying to reach the new state without leaving the old one. She was standing at the edge of the cliff, looking at the other side, but her feet were still planted on solid ground. Neville told her, you must leap. You must assume you have it now and live from that end, not toward it, from it. She went home. She sat in silence. And she did something simple but profound. She let go of the story. She let go of, I am a woman who wants a job. She let go of, I am a woman who was passed over. She let go of, I am unemployed. She became bare. Just, I am. And into that emptiness she whispered, I am employed. I am fulfilled in my work. I am grateful. She did not try to feel it. She did not try to convince herself. She simply assumed it as true, the way you assume your name is your name. And then she lived from that assumption. When she woke in the morning, she woke as a woman with a fulfilling job. When she went to bed, she thanked God for her work. When someone asked what she did, she answered, in her mind, as though she already held the position. 3 weeks later, a company she had never applied to contacted her. They had heard of her through a mutual acquaintance. They offered her a role that was better than the one she had originally wanted. She accepted, and later she wrote to Neville, I finally understood. I had to become the fool. I had to step off the cliff. She did not use that language, but the principle is identical. The Tarot's major arcana begins with the Fool, numbered 0, not 1, 0. And this is not arbitrary. 0 is the number of potentiality. It is the void before creation. It is the bare self, the I am, before it says, I am this or I am that. In traditional tarot interpretation, the Fool represents innocence, new beginnings, the leap of faith. He is the soul before it has incarnated, before it has taken on form. He carries a small bundle, the sum of all past experience, reduced to almost nothing. A little white dog nips at his heels, symbolizing instinct or memory, trying to pull him back. But he does not look down, he looks up. He is about to step into thin air. And here is the recognition. The Fool is Neville's unconditioned consciousness. The Fool is you when you have stripped away the story. The Fool is the state before the state, the awareness before the assumption. The I am without content. Neville said, I am is the name of God. Not, I am a teacher. Not, I am a father. Not, I am successful or unsuccessful, just, I am. That is the Fool. That is card 0. That is where you must begin every assumption, every manifestation, every act of conscious creation. You return to the bare self, and from that place, that 0 point, you assume the new state. And the Fool's leap? That is living in the end. That is the moment you step off the cliff of reason and sensory evidence, and walk in the assumption before the world has confirmed it. Neville called it daring to assume. The tarot calls it the Fool's journey, but it is the same act. Now, here is where this becomes more than metaphor. The major arcana does not stop at the Fool. The Fool begins a journey through 21 more cards, each one a distinct archetypal stage, and ends at the World, card 21, which represents completion, integration, fulfillment. The journey from 0 to 21 is the journey from assumption to manifestation. And every card in between is a psychological state you pass through on the way. Let me map this for you briefly, and then we will go deeper. The Fool steps off the cliff. That is assumption, the leap of faith. He becomes the magician, card 1, who says, I have all the tools I need. I am the creator of my reality. This is Neville's teaching. Consciousness is the only reality. The magician knows it. The High Priestess, card 2, is the silent knowing, the inner certainty that what you have assumed is already true in consciousness. She is the Sabbath, the rest that comes after assumption, the stillness in which the seed germinates. The Empress, card 3, is the feeling of abundance, the sensory richness of the wish fulfilled. She is what Neville meant when he said, live in the feeling. The Emperor, card 4, is the stabilization of that feeling, the assumption hardening into structure, into form. These are the early cards, the foundation. Then come the challenges. The Hierophant, card 5, is the voice of tradition, of the external authority that says, it is not done this way. Neville called this the voice of reason, of the senses, of the world that tells you your assumption is foolish. The Lovers, card 6, is the choice. Will you remain loyal to the old state, or will you commit fully to the new one? The Chariot, card 7, is the movement forward despite opposition, the persistence Neville spoke of constantly. You must persist, do not waver. Strength, card 8, is not physical force, but inner resolve. The gentle, unwavering certainty that you are what you have assumed. The Hermit, card 9, is the withdrawal into self, the turning inward that Neville practiced in SATS. You go into the silence. You commune with your own consciousness. You do not seek confirmation from the outer world. The Wheel of Fortune, card 10, is the turning point, the moment when the outer world begins to shift, when synchronicities appear, when you sense the assumption is taking root in the three-dimensional world. Justice, card 11, is the law proving itself. What you assumed is now being reflected back to you, not as reward or punishment, but as correspondence. The world is yourself pushed out. And then comes the Hanged Man, card 12. This is the surrender. This is the letting go of effort. Neville said, when you have assumed it, let it be. Do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. The Hanged Man hangs upside down, seeing the world from a new perspective, no longer struggling. He has given up control and entered trust. Death, card 13, is not literal death, but the death of the old self, the old state. It is the pruning shears of revision. The old identity falls away. What you were no longer exists. Temperance, card 14, is the integration, the blending of inner and outer, imagination and reality. You are living in the end naturally now, without effort. The devil, card 15, represents the temptation to return to the old state, to identify again with limitation, with lack. Neville warned of this. You will be tempted to go back. Do not. The tower, card 16, is the shattering of old structures, sometimes dramatic, sometimes subtle, that must fall away for the new to be fully born. The star, card 17, is hope, vision, the sense that the fulfillment is near. You can see it now. The moon, card 18, is the shadow work, the unconscious doubts, the hidden beliefs that still whisper, "This is not real." Neville called this the wrestling with the subconscious. You revise, you prune, you return again to the assumption. The sun, card 19, is the breakthrough, the joy, the clarity, the manifestation becoming undeniable. Judgment, card 20, is the awakening. You realize you have always been the creator, you have always been God. And finally, the world, card 21, completion. The assumption has fully externalized. You are living in the state you once only imagined. You are the wish fulfilled. The journey is complete. And yet, Neville reminds us, there is always another assumption, another state to enter. The world becomes the fool again. The cycle continues. Consciousness is infinite. This is not surface-level symbolism. This is a map. And it is Neville's map, laid out in visual and archetypal language centuries before he spoke it into the 20th century. Now we come to the practice. This is not theory. This is a method you can use tonight, tomorrow, and every day until the assumption hardens into fact. I am going to walk you through it step by step, as Neville would have done, and as the Fool's Journey illuminates it. You begin, always, with a desire, something you wish to experience. Do not dilute it. Do not make it spiritual or reasonable. Neville said, "Believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. So choose something specific. A job, a relationship, a healed body, a sum of money, a creative breakthrough. Whatever it is, name it clearly in your mind. Now, step 1, become the fool. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and let go of who you think you are. Let go of your name, your history, your failures, your successes. Let go of the story. Imagine yourself as pure consciousness, aware but undefined. You are the I am without content. You are standing at the edge of the cliff, and the cliff is the edge of the known. Feel the openness. Feel the innocence. You are not trying to become anything yet. You are simply becoming bare. Neville said, you must die to what you are. This is that death. It is gentle. It is willing. It is the fool releasing the bundle of the past and preparing to leap. Step 2. Assume the end. Now, from this place of openness, you construct a scene. A single, simple scene that implies the wish is already fulfilled. Neville called this the scene that would naturally follow the fulfillment of your desire. Do not imagine the process. Do not imagine the journey. Imagine the end. If you desire a new home, imagine yourself inside it, touching the walls, feeling the satisfaction of ownership. If you desire a relationship, imagine the conversation, the touch, the sense of intimacy that would only exist if it were already yours. If you desire health, imagine a doctor telling you the tests came back clear, or imagine yourself moving with ease and strength. Keep it short. Keep it sensory. Neville said, make it vivid, make it natural, and make it imply the wish fulfilled. This is the magician, card 1. You are declaring, I have the power to create this. This is the high priestess, card 2. You are entering the inner knowing that it is already done. Step 3. Feel it. Do not just see the scene. Feel it. Let the feeling of the wish fulfilled flood your body. This is the Empress, card 3. She is abundance. She is sensory richness. She is the feeling that Neville said is the secret. Feeling is the secret, he wrote. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and continue in that assumption, and that assumption will harden into fact. What does it feel like to have this? Not to want it, but to have it. Find that feeling. Let it fill you. If you cannot find it immediately, do not force it. Gently coax it. Recall a time you felt something similar, satisfaction, relief, joy, peace, and borrow that feeling. Wrap it around your desire. Let the scene and the feeling become one. Step 4. Rest in it. This is the Sabbath. This is the high priestess in her stillness. Neville said, "When you have prayed, believe you have received, and you shall receive." After you have constructed the scene and felt the feeling, let it go. Do not cling. Do not repeat it obsessively. Rest. Trust. Let the seed you have planted do its work in the dark, fertile silence of consciousness. The Hanged Man, card 12, reminds you, surrender effort. Trust the process. The assumption is already unfolding. Now, in the days and weeks that follow, you will pass through the other cards. You will encounter the Hierophant, the voice that says, "This is not how things work." You will face the Lovers, the choice to remain loyal to the new state or return to the old. You will need the Chariot, persistence when nothing seems to be happening. You will need strength, the inner certainty that does not waver. Here is what you do when doubt arises. When the world seems to contradict your assumption, you return to the scene. You return to the feeling. You do not argue with the outer world. You do not try to make it happen. You simply re-enter the state. This is revision. This is the pruning shears. Every time an inner conversation begins that contradicts your assumption, "I don't have it yet, it's not working, maybe it's not for me," you stop. You return to the Fool. You become bare again. And from that place, you reassume the end. Neville gave a technique in the 1950s that fits this perfectly. He called it the night practice. Every night, as you are falling asleep, you enter into your scene. You feel the wish fulfilled. You loop it gently until sleep takes you. And as you drift off, you are saturated in the state of the wish fulfilled. Sleep is the womb in which assumptions are gestated. The subconscious does not argue at the threshold of sleep. It accepts. And night after night, you impress the assumption deeper. This is the Hermit, card 9. You withdraw from the outer world and commune with your own consciousness. This is Temperance, card 14. You are blending imagination and reality until they are indistinguishable. And one day you will wake up and realize, the outer world has shifted. The wheel has turned. Justice has delivered correspondence. What you assumed is now what you see. And when that happens, when the manifestation is undeniable, you will stand in the world, card 21, and you will know, I did this. I, through assumption, through consciousness, through living in the end. And you will also know, I can do it again. The world becomes the Fool. The cycle begins anew. Let us step back now and ask the larger question, why does this matter? Why does it matter that Neville Goddard's teachings and the Fool's Journey of the Tarot say the same thing? Why should we care that systems separated by centuries, by culture, by language, by context, all arrive at the same truth? Because it points to something undeniable. Consciousness is primary. Reality is not material first and mental second. Reality is mental first, imaginative first, and material as a result. And every true mystical system, every esoteric tradition that has survived the test of time, knows this. They may use different symbols, different terminology, different rituals, but beneath the surface they are describing the same mechanism. Assume, and it is. Imagine, and it externalizes. Live in the end, and the world conforms. The tarot was not designed as a divination tool first. It was designed as a psychological and spiritual map, a journey of consciousness from potential to actualization. The Fool is not a fortune to be told. The Fool is you, right now, at the threshold of a new state. And the 21 cards that follow are not predictions. They are stages. You will pass through them. You must pass through them. That is the law. Neville gave us the law in modern language. He gave it to us in English, in lecture halls, in clear and direct speech. But the law is older than Neville. It is older than English. It is older than language itself. It is the law written into the structure of consciousness. And the tarot, like Kabbalah, like Hermeticism, like Vedanta, like the Tao, these are all attempts to describe that structure, to map that law, to hand it down so that each generation can discover it again for themselves. When you see the fool as Neville's bare self, when you see the magician as consciousness is the only reality, when you see the world as the wish fulfilled, you are not imposing a connection. You are recognizing one. You are seeing what has always been there. And that recognition changes you. It gives you confidence. It gives you a framework. It gives you a path. You are not alone in this work. You are walking a road that mystics, magicians, saints, and sages have walked for millennia. They left maps, they left symbols, they left breadcrumbs. And if you are willing to look, if you are willing to become the fool, to leap, to assume, you will find that the maps all point to the same destination, you realized. You fulfilled. You as God in human form, creating your world from within. You came here tonight with a question, or a hope, or a desire to understand how to make this real. How to use Neville's method, not as an idea, but as a daily practice. How to live in the end when everything around you says you are still at the beginning. And now you have the answer. You have the map. The fool's journey is your journey, and every step of it is an invitation to assume, to persist, to become. If this exploration has meant something to you, if it has opened a door or clarified a path, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It is how this work continues. It is how we keep building this library of convergences, this bridge between Neville and the great streams of esoteric wisdom. And I am grateful, truly grateful, for every mind that walks this path with us. Tonight, before you sleep, become the fool. Let go of who you think you are. Stand at the edge of the known and let yourself become bare. Just, I am, without content, without story. And then, from that place, assume. Construct your scene, feel your wish fulfilled, and step off the cliff. The ground will meet you. The law guarantees it. The fool always lands safely, because the fool is consciousness itself, and consciousness is the ground. Try it. Do not wait. Do not prepare. Do not rehearse. Just assume. Assume as though it is true, and persist in that assumption, and let the world rearrange itself around the stake you have chosen. That is the fool's leap. That is living in the end. That is the law. And it works, every single time, without exception, because consciousness is the only reality, and you are the operant power. The major arcana is not separate from your life. It is your life, seen from above, seen as pattern, seen as law. And Neville did not invent the law. He remembered it, he lived it, he taught it. And now it is yours. Walk the fool's journey. Walk it consciously. Walk it daily. From zero to the world, from assumption to fulfillment. And when you arrive, you will turn and see. The world was always there, waiting for you to assume it into being. Sleep in your assumption tonight. Wake in it tomorrow. And let the world catch up.